Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. I hope all of you are having a great day so far. As we kick things off with, we have a great show where we're going to have Dariush Derakhshani. He is our graphics expert, but we're going to change it up just a little bit because, if you spend a lot of your time making graphics, if you spend a lot of your time creating content, then you're going to find yourself running out of storage space pretty darn quick if you just rely on what's built into your computer. So with that in mind, we're going to have a couple of different solutions, and we're going to go over, essentially what you need to know about external and, just any kind of storage, be it cloud, external, inside your computer, what have you. We're going to have you covered. So we're going to be doing that in just a moment. But before that, a few things, including ComputerAmerica.com. That's where you'll find anything and everything having to do with the show. That can be, you can enter the contest. That is brought to you by Logitech, and we give away a prize every single Friday. That's right, tune in, and we could be reading your name live on the air. Also, be sure to check out the show notes, which will have a link to any products that we talk about, any articles that we talk about, our guest website, anything that you need to know, ComputerAmerica.com, and in the show notes. And then the last thing is, hey, you can watch Computer America and not just listen. That's right, just another way to experience the program. So I think with a quick run through, and I think we're ready to kick things off. So once again, joining us, he is a longtime Computer America correspondent. He is an expert in all things graphics and CGI, anything like that. He's worked on movies, TV shows, a lot of different projects. He teaches in California about exactly what we talk about. And Dariush, welcome back onto Computer America.
Hey, thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, it's going to be great. So, like I said, we're going to deviate just a bit, although we may have time to get back into some graphics topics. But you wanted to talk about storage today, and I think a good place to start would be kind of, why do you care about storage?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Why is somebody that corresponds on graphics want to talk about storage? Because graphics takes up a lot of storage, and you're also working with lots of other people. So mobility and shareability is really super important. And recently, I started a review on a G Drive 6 terabyte Thunderbolt 3 unit that I'll be writing up for Post Magazine. And it's, it dawns on me, there's not a whole lot of talk about storage. When I was going to school for animation, we had maybe 9 gigabyte storage that were in these metal towers that were really heavy, and everything was scuzzy. And it's become so much easier to have a lot of storage, and it's relatively cheap too. So for graphics, it all comes down to speed, how fast you can transfer files back and forth.
Right. And we're going to get into, obviously you wanted to talk about the G Drive. You're reviewing that, and we'll talk about the importance between things like USB 2.0, 3.0, Thunderbolt, and why speed is such a factor when you do this kind of backup. So, when you do this kind of storage, because it's not just backups, it's really just everyday usage can matter as well. So let's see, where would be a good place to start this? Maybe we should start with, kind of what most people kind of have, and then what you think would be a good first step into additional storage.
Yeah, no, that's a good place to start. I mean, you mentioned a lot of interfaces. Most people have a hard drive or two in their systems already, in their laptop or desktop machine. There's going to be at least one hard drive That stores your OS, your applications, some of your data, all that kind of stuff. A lot of people would also have USB keys or USB hard drives. That's probably the most common interface is USB 3, which is pretty speedy, in actual work, depending on the kinds of files I'm using. I get about 30 megabytes per second, which is certainly a lot better than what I've been used to in the past.
Right.
So, but there are new bandwidths or new interfaces, and bandwidth is basically how much data you can squeeze through the pipe from one end, the storage device, to your computer. And then your computer takes over and does what it needs to do. Some things don't need a lot of fast playback, like a lot of video content, especially MPEG-4 video content. Doesn't need a super speedy drive. You can do great stuff with just a USB 3 drive. I mean, I went down to my local Fry's the other day with a friend of mine and picked up a 2 terabyte little laptop Seagate drive, little external USB 3. I think it was like 60 or 69 bucks, like super cheap 2 terabyte. I throw it in my laptop bag whenever I need a lot of storage. I have it. And it's pretty fast. Like I said, about 35 megabytes per second on average. Now, Thunderbolt is an interface some Mac users will already know about. Um, you may have also heard USB-C, which is kind of a neat interface. I'll get back to that in a
Yeah,
second.
sure.
Thunderbolt and USB-C are kind of the same, and they're faster than USB 3. They
Right.
sort of rival the speed of your internal hard drive, which is usually hooked directly up to your motherboard.
Right. Yeah. So it's a lot less friction when you're looking at transferring memory or accessing files through these things. Thunderbolt, though, as you mentioned, Mac users might be familiar with it. It's because just kind of as a standard, G Drive is certainly one, and when you look at them, we have them up on the video portion of the screen. I mean, their aesthetics are very Mac Pro, iMac, kind of aesthetics. Thunderbolt really hasn't left the Mac ecosystem, has it really? I mean, it's Thunderbolt usually means kind of for Macs, because I feel like, or at least personally, when I look for Windows things, it's usually USB 3.0, 3.1, USB-C.
That's right.
Like it's not,
Yeah.
Thunderbolt really hasn't crossed that threshold.
No. Thunderbolt ends up being just sort of the naming that associates more with a Mac, like you said. USB-C, USB 3.1 are basically the faster standard with USB, and it rivals, if not beats, SATA interface speed. SATA is basically the interface for your internal hard drive hooking up to your computer. It's that little flat cable if you've ever built your own machine where you hook it up to the SATA port on your motherboard. And that generally gets you, depending on which version, between 3 and 6 gigabits per second, which is about 400 megabytes up to about 750 megabytes per second. Now, when we talk about these numbers, this is what they've measured out. It's not going to be terribly indicative all the time of your actual speeds.
Right.
So you got to take that with a grain of salt. Depends on the size of file, the number of files, the format that you're copying from and to. So, but these give you comparative sort of feedback.
Talk real quick about buying buying storage from a reputable person, because if you go do a quick Google search for cheap SSD, cheap NAS, what have you, if you look for cheap storage, you might find some, but they're from kind of companies you may not have heard about, startups in China and India. Do you tend to go with kind of companies you've heard about, or is all storage equal?
All storage is not equal, that's for sure. However, it's not as wide-ranging as one may think. There's different types of storage. There's the mechanical hard drives, which most people are familiar with and indeed have. Those mechanical drives, the top makers are generally Seagate, Western Digital, LaCie makes some, G Drive. These are all quality drives, quality brands, um, and they do a nice job.
Hmm.
And generally, you're going to get some duds. Mechanical hard drives have different failure rates, so buying one brand over another may not net you much of a difference. I've looked at the reviews on Newegg and Amazon for, let's say, Seagate versus Western Digital drives, external or internal. You get the same sort of feedback. Some fail, some don't. So in that regard, I kind of stick to those. Hitachi also makes some quality drives as well. Um, all around, about the same with mechanical.
Okay.
When I get to solid state drives, SSDs, and we've talked about it a number of times before, I go with the top brands because their throughput speeds, the quality of the chips, that kind of stuff, I think is a little more wide ranging. And not to say anything bad about some of the other brands, OCZ or Patriot, for example. SanDisk has some drives out. I'm sure they're all quality drives. I prefer to stick with Samsung in
Right.
that case. They have very, very fast drives.
Yeah, I'm, personally, I've had just about everyone that you rattled off there. Samsung is kind of the one that leaps out because, I mean, they just have such good reviews. And then, we didn't even talk about, well, that's, that's kind of RAM, but, or, I'm sorry, M.2, but that gets, I think a little more, like, I've never seen a 4 terabyte M.2 external hard drive. That would be like thousands of dollars. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah,
yeah.
so,
So capacity is certainly important. Yeah, and M.2 ends up being an interface, kind of like what we were talking about
right.
before. How much data can you push through that pipe? And M.2 has kind of a direct interface to the central command system of your motherboard. It goes right in there, stupid fast. I'm getting hundreds of megabytes sustained when I'm copying from and to M.2 devices, like
Yeah. Oh,
crazy
it's
fast, over a gigabyte a second for
yeah.
sure.
It definitely takes it may not seem like a lot, but when you're talking a matter of 30 seconds, minutes at a time every single day, it starts to really add up, and it's very, very cool. I think before we move on to some of the specific products people should look at, why don't we talk about some of the key kind of indicators that you look at when you search for, because you said you did a lot of homework before you
Mhm.
jumped into a NAS. Is it read write speed? Is it capacity? Is it hard drive, spinning platters versus solid state? What are some key factors people should look at when considering a hard drive?
I think it comes down to what do you need it for. This Seagate that I bought for $70 at Fry's, I just needed portability. I need to throw it in my bag, take it around. It's got a little short cable. It's small. It's compact. It's sizable with 2 terabytes. If you're using a hard drive to move a large amount of data from one or two places, as opposed to just having it in your pocket, you can get larger and larger drives, like this 6 terabyte G drive that I'm taking a look at right now. It's big, it's got a separate power cord, it's got its own USB cord. So it's a little bit more of a commitment to move it around, but it holds a lot of data, and the interface speed is much faster with Thunderbolt, which is also USB-C. You're going to get many gigabytes per second as far as they've reported, and I'm seeing really good results on Thunderbolt 2 even, which is half the speed of Thunderbolt 3. So again, Thunderbolt USB-C get about the same results depending on the computer and what you're copying around. So that's probably the fastest you can get right now without going inside your computer and hooking it up directly. And the newer ones like USB-C actually rival mechanical hard drive speeds that are not this M.2 speed that you're talking about. Um, if you want a drive that you don't mind dropping and is going to be a lot more durable and compact, then that's what you want to get, a small external SSD,
Yeah.
which is going to be really expensive in comparison. And its sizes, its storage capacity, is going to be less as well because they haven't made those quite as dense as they're able to make mechanical hard drives for, the little externals.
Yeah, I mean, just a quick Google search here. Here's one, and let's see. I think, and it says it starts at about 200 for a 500 gigs, so an eighth or even a tenth the size of one of yours, and it's already more than half the price for an external SSD. So you're right. I mean, those are supremely expensive, but I think your solution, where if you just like, I think a lot of people get SSDs for the ability not to really, read write at super fast speeds, but just the fact that you have a lot of data. You have a lot of movies, you have a lot of pictures, you have a lot of just general backups and documents. So I think in a lot of externals, speed isn't as crucial because, hey, that's what the internals are for. But capacity, seems to be really, really big.
Yeah, agreed. That's definitely where the mechanical drives still shine, and the speed issue really doesn't matter for a lot of folks because they use an external for backup or the occasional taking something over to a friend's house or to work. So it's not that much of a an issue. But I don't know too many people that don't have a little USB stick on their keychain or with them at all times. That usually ends up being a really good super portable sort of thing. In the world of graphics and images, there are so many files that we're transferring back and forth. I work with lots of different people when I'm freelancing, and when I go to class, I bring a lot of stuff with me. Portability is and speed are super important for those day-to-day things. Now, you'd mentioned
Yeah.
a little while ago. I'd love to talk about the NAS.
Right. Well,
You know what?
and something I wanted to mention was that I don't currently have the little thumb drive, what have you, because I realized that I had one, and then I hadn't used it in a couple years, and I plugged it in, and it said, "This is a 32 megabyte thumb drive." And I'm like, I can't
That's
even use this for
yeah.
anything. So, having a pretty good size one of those is certainly helpful. It's just they get outdated so quickly. They get bigger and bigger so quick. But you're right. Network attached storage. That's something I wanted to bring up as well because I feel like use cases for external drives only go so far, but they go up. They become a lot more useful when you attach them to a network. So if you wanted to bring up, a NAS, why, and what are some things you could do with it?
One of the reasons why I got a NAS, a network attached storage, is so I could have a central location where multiple computers in my house, and I have multiple computers in my house, can basically access the same stuff. Now I've strung network in my house, but this could be done with Wi-Fi as well. But I've got a gigabit Ethernet throughout the house. So from my wife's laptop to my office and computer to my son's gaming system, they're all on this backbone that can access the same files.
Hmm.
And I actually also have a media center PC in my living room that accesses the movies that I store on that NAS as well. So this gives you that centralization, sort of like going on the cloud. A lot of different NASs will allow you to also access them remotely from and from the internet, basically, which has also come in handy a number of times where I've forgotten something and I need to go ahead and download it to wherever or whatever class that I'm in. So the NAS has been a real lifesaver because a lot of times I'll be rendering on my son's computer, which used to be my old workstation, or I'll be, my wife and I will be working on the same thing.
Hmm.
Having something that's in the closet, it's always on, is super important. What it is, it's got a little Intel Atom processor in it. It's a basically a little server computer. It attaches to your network and you access it through a network share, like it through your Windows Explorer or through connecting to a server on OS X. And it's platform agnostic, meaning my PC and my Mac can access that location, no problem. It's really fantastic, but it's not cheap. It's not for the faint of heart.
Right. Yeah, it's certainly can be a way. And something I wanted to kind of bring up with with NAS is that I mentioned before the show that managing media. I mean, I think for a lot of people, uh, at least that listen to the show, navigating through folder after directory, that it's kind of okay for people. But I think for others, they expect something similar. And again, this is strictly through media and movies, music, what have you. They expect something a little bit closer to the kind of what they're used to with Netflix, to Amazon Video, what have you, like a little bit of a better, more simplified interface. And that's why, again, before the show, I mentioned Plex and how this is something that is being found on more and more devices. I mean, TVs are coming pre-programmed with it. They have routers that actually are built in with it. We just had Netgear on, and they were very proud that Plex was on some of their new routers. And hard drives and NASs are kind of coming pre-programmed with it as well. So let's ask you, how do you manage media in general, and what do you think about services such as Plex or any other kind of management systems?
I would love something to just organize and tag and give me posters or covers and album covers and stuff like that. I have a huge CD collection that I've ripped. So the CDs are sitting in my garage, but everything's on my server. I'd love to be able to serve that around. I had a lot of trouble doing it many years ago. I tried building a multimedia PC built on something called XMB, which was based on the Xbox Media server, and nothing really worked. There's lots of different formats. I've got MP3s, I've got waves, I've got FLACs, movies, I've got MKVs and MP4s and lots of different video formats. And nothing was a silver bullet that fixed everything until I just said I had it. I built a little Intel i5 machine with a nice little silver case to put in the living room. I hooked it up to my TV through HDMI, and that was that. I've got a wireless keyboard and mouse that's sit under the table, the coffee table. Drag it out, boot it up, and there I go. I just found it to be more direct, but I have to maintain it. I've got to put the covers on myself.
Right.
So Plex is a really great option because my NAS, which is from the company QNAP, I can't speak highly enough about this NAS. I really, really love it and recommend it. It has apps that you can run on it, and one of them is Plex. So I've got a TV that's Plex enabled, which means it's got the Plex app. I can run it on the TV. It goes looking around the house for a Plex server, which is on my NAS, finds the video files, the home movies, the music, whatever I have in the Plex server, finds it, and I can play it directly through there. And I just go through the TV, and that's that. The
Right.
only thing I miss is having a keyboard so I can type in search terms.
Yeah, yeah. Being a power user is certainly kind of
Yeah.
one thing for a mouse and keyboard, but that's what we found with Plex when we kind of gave it our review. We still have it up on our site, but it actually goes out. It finds kind of identifies what you have, and it will go out and fetch pictures for you or album covers, things like that. Kind of make everything kind of all spiffy, and lets you, of course, this is through a service, but it lets you kind of, instead of streaming from, let's say, a Netflix or streaming from, whatever server, if you're on the go, you can pull out your phone, you can pull out another computer, you can pull out, you can log into from a friend's, maybe Xbox or something, and you can access your Plex server, your media from anywhere. And that, I think, is the number one kind of benefit, is that you don't just get access to any media, like with these services, you get access to your media. So you get access to your pictures, your movies, your music, your work files. That is the best part of having a NAS and having your own NAS is, you don't have to, and we're about to talk about the cloud, and, that's the next place this conversation is going. But people have security concerns. People question, if they put something in the cloud, is it really for my eyes only? Or are they going to get stolen? And yeah, NAS is a great way to not make yourself security proof, make yourself really, really secure, but at least in a lot of people's minds, more secure than than storing it in someone else's cloud, because you get to control all the privacy to it.
Absolutely. And when you're at home on your home network where the NAS is, it's it's hella fast. It is so much faster than going to Google Drive or Amazon or whatever and downloading your files or working offline. It's much, much faster. But you do have that option where your NAS can become a cloud you can log into from wherever you are. And as far as security goes, that's a larger topic for discussion. But in my view, somebody wants to hack you, they're going to hack you.
Right.
There's only so much you can do short of just not being connected to the internet, which is very valid. A friend of mine he also does graphics and visual effects. His machine is not connected to the internet. That is the machine that does the work. No internet, no chance of something going weird or wonky or weird. So that's the only way to be super safe.
It's the only way to be super safe, but the reason I said it was more secure is that it's not that people are, or individuals, and I mean, like, I truly mean this, individuals as a lot are better security minded than professionals who are paid day to day to do this. It's just that if you are part of a cloud, then you are part of, millions of people storing
Oh yeah.
billions of files. You're just
Oh
more likely.
yeah.
But if someone's looking for you as an individual, yeah, it's probably not any more secure than anything else. It's just
Oh,
you're
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're
No,
just
you're
putting
right
yourself
about
in a
that.
bigger barrel. Right.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's
go ahead.
one thing that makes me nervous about being on, Dropbox or Google is it's on somebody else's computer. I just feel better that it's on mine. But those services are super helpful and handy anyway, as I'm sure we're about to talk.
Yeah, we're gonna kind of switch over to this because personally I use it for some business applications, but I don't use it for my day to day. And maybe you can kind of swing myself and some listeners out there. But a lot of services, be it Apple, be it Microsoft and Windows 10, specifically, I think Microsoft purchased Dropbox, if I'm not mistaken. And so you get like, I think it's like, what is it? 1 gig, 3 gig, 5 gig, something like that. Something pretty low. Just kind of natively. And at every other turn on Windows 10, every time I save a file, they're like, would you also like to sync this to your Dropbox cloud? And I'm like, no, thank you. But I mean, there's a lot of different services and they're getting,
There are. Yeah.
they're getting more, more integrated. There we go. That's the word, integrated. They're getting more integrated, easier to use. Let's talk about cloud storage and, just kind of let's start with your options and then we'll talk about what kind of what you use them for.
I think there are many, many different options, and some are pretty much the same, and it comes down to your preference and how much you want to spend. Google Drive is probably my favorite because it's part of the sort of the Google ecosystem with Gmail and um, Google Documents and spreadsheets and stuff like that. So it's really great. You get, I want to say 2 or 1 gigabyte
I think
free
th-
or
I think
10,
they
is it?
I think they upped it to I think like 15, but they took away
Oh dear, wow.
they took away some storage from like Gmail and stuff, but like now your Gmail and your Google Drive and your Google Docs and Pics, they all share the same 15 gigs.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
So,
no,
but yeah,
that's pretty significant. I mean, that's pretty good. There's Google Drive, there's Microsoft has OneNote, which is really well integrated into Windows. There's Dropbox, there's a few transfer services like Me Transfer. Um, these are Amazon has cloud storage as well, but I use Google Drive a lot, and I've been using Dropbox a bunch as well because I've been collaborating with people that have Dropbox. So I end up paying, I think, about $20 for both of those services to have, I think, about 100 gigabytes each.
nice. Yeah, and we're finding that the prices of cloud storage are kind of going up. It's but the quantity is going up, but the price is going up, and we're gonna talk about that. Hey, everyone, music means we're gonna take a break. It's a bit low, but we'll change that in just. There we go. Anyways, so we'll be back, everyone. Dariush Derakhshani. We're talking all things storage, how to get your files from one place to another. Be right back. More Computer America after this.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 31 minutes past the hour as we talk with Dariush Derakhshani. He is our graphics expert, and we're talking, well, again, a way to store all those graphics that you create. And we are just, getting into, of course, cloud storage and the idea that you store things, on someone else's computer, and you do it for, hey, a bit of money. And, I mean, like, honestly, it's pretty good. It's a very, very good option for things like Google because, hey, 15 gigs are free. You can't beat that. And then if you want to pay a little bit more, $10, it's going to, like, if you, let's say, buy your own NAS, like the one that we used earlier, for example, $300 or so, $400 or so, it would take you a number of years to kind of break even if you wanted to make your own solution at home. And, not to mention all the integration. That's actually why, Dariush, I also like Google, is that I find myself wanting to send files over like a gig. And when you get to that part, as an attachment in an email, it doesn't really work too well. Google Drive and its integration with Gmail and able to send those large files where you put them as kind of like a link, and people can, view them and then download them through Google Drive. It makes sending attachments super, super easy.
Absolutely. It makes collaborative work a lot easier as well. You can share a folder and have people update to it depending on if you have Google Drive downloaded to your system. I think it's called Google Backup and Sync now. You can have it automatically sync a folder on your system, just like Microsoft OneDrive does, just like Dropbox can do. So that's convenient as well. And I think, actually, I think I misspoke. The cost for Google for 100 gigabytes is $3 or $4. It's actually kind of cheaper.
Yeah,
Dropbox
cheaper.
is like $10 for about the same.
Right. Yeah. And when I said it was getting more and more expensive, it was a bit on the higher end, more for business, businesses to store large amounts of data on, on Amazon or Microsoft servers. That's getting more expensive. And
It definitely is. Yeah. If you have a lot of data that you're sharing, costs definitely go up, and you're looking at a lot more per month to do that. But there's a lot of, different types of services, as we mentioned. But the average user, or even the average power user, won't really distinguish too much between the likes of a Dropbox or a OneDrive or a Google Drive. So it becomes a matter of preference. If you're already in the Google sphere, then it's not that big of a reach to get a lot more storage on there. And found myself the other day working on something with a friend of mine, and was running out of storage because we're constantly putting files in there. So, but it's really, really convenient, and fairly quick depending on your broadband connection,
right.
or if heaven forbid you're still on dial-up, that's going to be a little bit tougher for you.
And that's something that when you talk about cloud, that's you should really take into consideration, because when you were talking about kind of having it at home and in your own personal network, if you're using incredibly fast cables and USB 3.1 and Thunderbolt, to your computer, it's lickety fast. But if you want to upload large files to the cloud, you have to look at your upload speed, which a lot of people, I think, they do look at it, but it doesn't really sink home because personally, like I get like 130 megabytes per second download speed, which is great. I love it. But for some reason, I'm not going to name the provider, but they still cap you at 5 megabytes per second
Oh,
upload speed.
wow.
I
Yeah.
know, and it's atrocious. So when you're trying to move, let's say you want to move a 30 gig file, that would take you, many a minute to upload with
Yeah.
5 megabits per
Yeah.
second.
Yeah, no, I I remember back in the day of dial-up, I had a 300 baud modem. For those who don't know what that is, it's slow, is what that is. And I would dial into our local BBSs. This was before the internet was really what it is now. You would dial into specific bulletin boards, and downloading some data to a floppy disk, 800K 3.5 inch floppy disk would take 6 to 7 hours. Hours.
Yeah.
In this day and age, you get 100 times that in seconds. But still, big files get throttled. I find about a 10 to 1 ratio between your download speed and your upload speed. I've got a cable provider here. I've got 100 coming down, and I've got 10 going up. They always throttle the upload speeds. I think because a lot more people download, so
Hmm.
they don't need to pay that much attention to upload, but that's when they get you. That's when the prices go up. If you're doing a lot of uploading, if you're the hub or a server for something, that's when you start breaking out the business pricing plans.
Absolutely, and it's I, trust me, 5 megabits per second that I'm getting, certainly out of the ordinary because, like, I think everyone out there who has access to, 1 gig up, 1 gig down through Google, or I think
Yeah.
a couple other services are starting to compete in that field. That is the dream. And when you talk about, kind of the cloud, the cloud becomes a lot more useful when you have that kind of data transfer speed, upload and download. So, um,
It really does. Yeah, it sort of obviates the need for your own local network
right.
where you
So,
have, drives hooked into it.
right. Yeah. And if you wouldn't mind blue skying for a little bit, do you think that's where storage is going in general, where transfer rates and internet speed, they're going to hit a point where it doesn't make a lot of sense, and I'm sorry, the benefits are going to outweigh the cons, and just kind of servers like Amazon or Microsoft are just going to host all data whatsoever, and then you're just going to access it through your terminal. Like, is that the kind of the endpoint?
I think so. If companies are going to be able to create and maintain that sort of level of infrastructure, number of servers and stuff like that, I think a lot of things are going to move to the cloud, including computing. So you don't have a powerful CPU at your desk anymore. That's being done virtually elsewhere. But that does, I mean, to service the majority of the population, that would be a huge, huge infrastructure taking. So I think in some ways, storage is going to be one of the first to go there
Mhm.
because bandwidth speeds are definitely getting there. But you're seeing things like computing online on the cloud, like rendering images in my industry, going to a service like Rebus Farms or even Amazon and rendering on their compute cycles is happening a lot in my industry. And I think, at some point you're going to start seeing a proliferation of that into the enthusiast and then the common marketplace where you don't need to, you need, I guess, like a dumb terminal at your
Right.
computer, basically a keyboard, a screen, and a mouse, and then everything is done elsewhere, and you don't suck up hundreds of watts of energy of your own, where somebody else is doing that. Licensing software certainly has gone that way, where you used to buy and have a box with software. Nowadays, you're kind of leasing or you're sort of licensing a subscription where it's sort of running somewhere else. I think that'll be the next step.
Right. And well, and I'm sure that we're talking about, not even 5 years in the future, but a little bit further beyond. And
I think so.
yeah,
Yeah, I think
it's
it maybe half a generation away.
right. And yeah, hey, it's certainly getting to that point. But another thing that that kind of ties into a lot of what we've been talking about today, in terms of kind of transfer rate and the idea that we're going to have more information to transfer, and whether you store that locally or in the cloud, um, yeah, it's really going to matter, because with that increased data, you're going to be able to do more things. And I thought we would kind of shift the conversation to a little bit about augmented reality, because we've had a number of companies come on in the past 2 weeks. Just to name a few things like Mant VR, that was this Monday. We had Planner, which was just yesterday. John Petty Research, and Immerse 2017, which is a
Hmm.
conference run by the Immersive Technology Alliance. All of them, and obviously this is part of their business, but all of them lay out a very aggressive, kind of timeline where AR is going to start being part of our lives. And because you are our graphics expert, and the fact that, hey, part of what we're talking about today is going to have to come to fruition if VR and AR is going to become a thing. Um, would you mind talking about AR, just for a couple minutes?
Yeah, no, absolutely. If you've played Pokemon Go, you know AR very well. I think a service's ability to be able to serve their population, their customer base with content at a good bandwidth is going to be important. AR, really, it's very scalable. How much you immerse, or what the CG, what the fake thing is in your environment, where VR is a complete and total replacement of your environment.
Right.
AR just augments it. It'll stick something here and there. That's where, like Pokemon, is pretty simple. The graphics, the objects, the Pokemon you're going after are pretty easy to serve back and forth, even with millions of customers. I think the holy grail is going to be getting to a point where a service can compute all that for you, so you can just have it on your device. Because you and I and a lot of your listeners will know, VR takes, and even AR to some extent, takes up a lot of computational need.
Yeah.
There's a lot it has to figure out, especially, real-time graphics. You've got an Xbox, it does 60 frames a second. You've got to do that, but a lot more, because you've got to wrap all the way around and create a much larger, much more robust environment than just a 16 by 9
Yeah.
TV screen.
Yeah, the ratios are pretty incredible, and that's why let's take yesterday's guest, for example, Planner. They make a little app that you stand in the middle of a room, and by the way, anyone who didn't listen to this, you can go check it out. But the gist of it is, it uses your phone, so any 6S or above, your Apple phone, and you essentially use your camera, and you kind of place these little markers over where the wall would be, and you kind of stand still, and it renders in real time using your phone's processor a 3D grid of your room, and it's able to tell you the square footage of your room. You're able to overlay images in your room, like if you want to put new flooring. It's able to do all of that just with your phone. And, admittedly, your phone is, pretty high tech, but that's not even a computer or the cloud or anything like that. So I think real time AR and VR is probably where it's, really going to start taking off. And I think we're there with AR. So,
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I think there's a huge number of uses for AR. And I think one of the big things it's going to allow us to do is to remotely be somewhere that we're not, to remotely experience something that's happening far away from us, or be, more importantly, involved in that. I think we brought that up before, where it would be great if a doctor on one side of the world was involved in a surgery on the other side of the planet, and be completely immersed in it using a VR or an AR sort of gear,
Right.
and that a lot of data has to travel back and forth. So I think compression schemes and bandwidth are two big topics of a nerd talk, where compression is taking data and making it smaller without losing fidelity to it, and bandwidth is literally how fat of a pipe you have between two locations.
Right. And, getting more into, the kinds of content, because obviously, hey, the content's going to matter a lot. That's where a company called Man VR, kind of came on the show, said some things that I didn't fully agree with. I didn't press him on it because, I don't really truly believe in being adversarial. But, he said some things like, the generation that doesn't like VR, they're going to die in about 15 years. And I was like, Jesus Christ, man,
Wow.
yeah,
That's a bold statement.
yeah, but I mean, he was a, kind of a Hollywood producer, kind of deal. I'm sure
Mhm.
you more than anyone would know the type. And he was very aggressive that 360, immersive experiences were gonna be the next big thing, or it's going to start replacing, just looking at a television in the next 5 years. He said that cable TV was going to be dead. Um, I
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's very
yeah. I
aggressive.
don't know about that. It is very aggressive, and honestly, I think there's a huge amount of excitement for VR in Hollywood, and rightfully so. It's a brand new landscape in many different ways. I think creating content for VR and AR is very exciting, and I share in that excitement with this producer. But I do think it's a little aggrandized. I think it's a little hyperbole where it's maybe going a little too aggressive with the timeline. I don't think traditional TV, traditional viewing is going to go away quite that fast. I don't know if it'll ever really go away. I think there's going to be a point where VR, certainly by itself, is it's going to be too tiring. I mean, and I may be part of that generation that's going to be dead in 15 years.
I hope
I
not.
hope
Yeah.
not for for my creditor's sake. But I
Uh,
think
yeah.
watching something in VR is just going to be exhausting, and I think it takes an activity level where you want to jump in. Even the most crazy health enthusiast will get off the treadmill at some point.
Right.
You know?
It seemed like to him it was, even if you take something as traditional as sitting in front of a television, using, I guess in his case it was kind of VR, you can put yourself in a similar situation, but it's like television a little bit better, where, you would have a friend who may be across the country who has an avatar representing themselves, and
Sure.
they're able to sit next to you on a virtual sofa and watch essentially virtual television. It like even basic experiences would be, would benefit from some level of AR or VR. I think that was his
I
point.
think so. Yeah, no, that's for sure. That is definitely for sure. As far as it overtaking everything that we do, I don't quite think so. But I definitely think it's going to have it already has a growing impact, and that impact is going to continue to grow as we find more everyday uses of AR and VR. And that's sort of the point. We've got these phones coming out, and I'm at a point where my iPhone 6 is starting to turn itself off every now and then, and I
Mm.
need a new phone. So I've been looking at Samsung and the horribly expensive iPhone 6, I'm sorry, the iPhone
iPhone 10.
8
Yeah.
and or the X, there's just no discounting those anymore. Apple is being very um, difficult as far as finding a cheap iPhone 8 or X, but I digress. So I've been chopping around for phones, and maybe that's a good conversation for the next time. But these phones are getting stronger and have more compute capability, particularly in AR and VR
Well,
apps. And potentially that's great and all, but maybe there's a way to cloud deliver that computation without needing to put, a supercomputer in your hand.
just to put a little seed in your mind, again, another company that we just had on Tuesday. I swear to God, these these AR companies have just been on the rampage lately, where a company called Matter and Form, they do essentially scans for 3D printing. They make a
Hmm.
little kind of scanner that you put on your desktop. Anyways, they moved into Bevel for your phone, and it's a little plug-in for it's a little plug-in device. But I was able to weasel out of them, and if you listen to the interview, they said that the next thing coming out of their labs that they're working on is AR scanning, or I'm sorry, just scanning, but just with your phone, taking multiple pictures. And a lot of companies seem to be of the mind that that things like and things seem to be and by the way, just real quick, which app, by the way, were you talking about? Because I'm sure if you missed it, I'm sure listeners out there might want to check it out too.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was just typing
Yeah.
a message. You mentioned an
Yeah,
app
yeah,
where
yeah. That was a
you
planner.
can.
A planner. We just had him on the show yesterday. PLNAR. And
Awesome.
the swapping out of the materials, just to be fair, that is more like they're working with professionals and contractors and organizations like Home Depot and IKEA. So it's more like the business side is going to get that, but you can
Hmm.
definitely check it out. PLNAR. And yeah, that app will let you, make dimensions and do some kind of AR in your own room. Definitely check that out. But what I was saying about Matter and Form, their next project, because of the dual cameras, because you can start to sense depth with your basic smartphone, they're going to be doing kind of 3D rendering on your phone in real time, so that I'm sure that you know this, Darius, that when with AR, one of the big problems right now is that if you project something on, let's say, a wall, if you project something on a table in front of you, and then you kind of put your hand in front of it, what would maybe look like 10 feet away, the minute you put your hand in front of your camera, it looks like it's 2 inches away, and it looks much smaller. Like you can't go behind a projected image,
Right, right.
or you can't go in front. And that's where Matter and Form is hoping to kind of take it, where AR in the next couple of months, if not the next year or two, you're going to be able to put something, put an AR object, and you're going to be able to go around it or in front of it, or, like it'll stay behind your hand, it'll stay somewhere. So it kind of gives it a bit more of a presence if you can actually, kind of walk around it and, not not mess with it when you
Right,
project something.
right. Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
it's all about depth sensing, being able to know how deep the elements are in your VR, and then have your camera sense the depth that your hand is, for example, and be smart enough to put your hand in front of whatever's being rendered in AR. And that's one of the things that I think is going to be a big deal in movie and television production, is having cameras that can sense depth fast enough, because they're there now, but they're just not fast enough. They need to get up to probably 60 frames a second with uh, good fidelity. That is going to greatly reduce the need for things like green screening, because then it knows what goes behind where. And I think that's a huge, huge key. And I'm rooting for these guys
yeah.
to be able to have that in AR on our phones real soon. That sounds very exciting.
Yeah, yeah, and you just mentioned these cameras, and I remember hearing a story about Red in their digital camera. They just came out with like an $80,000 camera or something like that. So I think the things that you can do, and even if they're just like extras, even if they're currently not the point of the film, I'm fully expecting more VR, AR. Kind of like behind the scenes of filming is probably going to be filmed in that kind of situation. So no, and again, AR VR, it just seems like it's popping up every other day here, at least on our show. And I was excited about VR 3 years ago when the Oculus was kind of coming up and saying it's going to revolutionize the game field. It didn't, but I'm kind of getting that same feeling again, where I'm getting super excited for AR and VR just in everyday usability of technology. It seems to be coming really, really fast.
Very exciting stuff. It definitely is.
So, with that being said, I think we should kind of start to wrap up the show here. We have like 2 or 3 more minutes, not really enough time to jump into another, kind of topic here. But let's do a recap of the memory portion because we did deviate. If you were to recommend people extra storage, should they start with a second hard drive in their computer or a NAS or external? Where should they go, and kind of what should they consider?
Great question. I think if you're adding storage to your computer, it's probably the best to go with a little portable external USB 3 or USB-C drive. It'll be as fast as the hard drive inside your computer, more or less. So I think that'll give you the flexibility to pick it up and take it elsewhere as well. If you want a lot of storage, then you'll get a larger external that comes with its own power pack, which is a little bit less portable, but is going to be, 5, 6 times larger than the really small ones that fit in your pocket.
Right. And where did you go to shop for this? I mean, Amazon's always good. We have no sponsors, by the
Absolutely.
way, but where'd you kind of go to shop for? Because you said you shopped around quite a bit.
Yeah, Amazon, Newegg, Fry's, Best Buy, they all have them, and the name brands like Seagate, Western Digital, are typically about the same price. So you're going to get about the same deal, unless there's a sale going on Amazon that you might get at Fry's, shipping and tax notwithstanding.
Right. All right. No, very, very good information. And, I'm glad that we covered it because it seems like in a lot of cases on the show here, we talk about it once and then you look up and it's been about 3 years since we covered that topic again.
Right,
So,
yeah.
yeah, hard drives, storage, and you may have heard me a couple times this show. I kept wanting to call it memory, where, that's more referring to RAM. Storage is probably the best way for it. And folks, I think this is a pretty good episode that I'm going to point people to if they want to know about additional storage on their computer. So, with that being said, Darius, I'm going to wrap it up here. And
Right on.
I want to say thank you for joining us on the show. If people want to find out more, where, again, what was that review going to be posted to?
That review is going to be at Post Magazine, which serves the industry I'm in.
Hmm.
And they can always find me at Koosh3D on Twitter. And I've been posting a whole bunch of stuff on YouTube. I did an MSI review that's up on YouTube, as well as some stuff on how to animate using Maya.
Very, very cool. And of course, we'll have a link to all of that in the show notes for your convenience at Computer America. So, Darius, thank you so much. And again, looking forward to actually, we might have a little bit of fuzziness with the next couple months due to the holidays, but we'll make sure we'll get you on whenever you're available. And hey, thanks for doing this.
That sounds great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. All right. And everyone else out there, we are just about done here with Computer America. If you want to find out more, be sure to check out computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find the podcast version of the show, which can be heard on places like iTunes, Google Play Store, iHeartRadio, of course, Blog Talk Radio, and of course, you can listen to us live on IRN as well. Now, tomorrow on the program, if I have this right, and folks, as always, subject to availability, but tomorrow on the program, we're going to have Marcel Gagne. That's our all Linux program, and that's where we cover everything from Linux distributions, operating systems, news, and more. So if you want to learn how to use Linux, definitely check that out. Marcel Gagne, very knowledgeable about all that kind of thing. And let's see. Yeah. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in. It's been great. And be sure to do so again Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern. So until next time, everyone, have a great day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.